Hello and welcome to episode number 38 of the Hobbies and Happiness podcast, where we talk all about the hobby that makes us happy, tabletop gaming. I'm one of your hosts, Dan.
And I'm Jim, and today we're talking about why you guys should check out Expandable and living card games.
All right. So, Jim, did you enjoy the Super Bowl? We were just talking about that not that long ago.
Yeah, I was actually at Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, you were?
Yeah.
How was that?
It was fun.
Yeah.
I had a burger for the first time from that place. I'm like,
really?
Yeah, I never had a burger there.
Okay, all right. What did you think?
I thought it was pretty good.
Yeah.
At first, when I looked at it, I thought it was like a steak burger setup, but I don't think it really was.
What kind of burger was it?
It was I just got a double cheeseburger.
Just a regular, okay.
Yeah.
So when COVID first hit a couple of years back, we were getting a lot of takeout and a lot of the pickup. And I had a ton of Buffalo Wild Wings then. And the burger that I still get anytime I get Buffalo Wild Wings normally, this is what I get now. Yeah. I get the Southwest burger. Oh man, I can't even remember what's on it, but it is so good. Like I get that, and then we get some of the some of their boneless wings. I can't remember the sauce I normally get, but dude, I love me some Buffalo Wild Wings.
Yeah, normally if I'm getting wings, it's either mild or honey barbecue. One of those two.
Okay, yeah, honey barbecue is what we normally get. Yeah. Who'd you have in the Super Bowl? Did you care who won?
No, I didn't care at all. Yeah, when I first went there, I was like, I don't even know who's in the Super Bowl.
Really?
I just knew that who was going to be in the halftime show. I'm like,
that's because
I really wanted to see
because
that.
It was the best halftime show ever.
It was cool.
I saw something on Facebook, Twitter. I saw this going around, but it was like, boomers, this is the worst halftime show ever. Everyone else, this was the best halftime show ever. And so I'm sitting here with like my parents, and there was a bunch of people here at our house for our party. Me and my friends, we were just like we were rapping with them. We're like, yes, these are our jams. Yeah. So what did you guys think about the halftime show? I'd be very curious to know. Let us know. All right, but before we continue talking about football, today we are talking about expandable and living card games. Yeah. And if you're hearing that term, you might be thinking, what in the world are those? So we've touched on this a little bit in the past. We've actually played a little bit on the channel. We've played Marvel Champions once. Excuse me. And then we're going to be playing it some more. But go check that out. And here in the card, we'll put a link to that video. That game is so much fun.
I can't wait to play it again.
And so I've been wanting to talk about. I've kind of been wanting to do it like a deep dive per se into this format basically of card games, and that's what we're doing today. So before we continue, before we get into it, if you like the podcast and if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead, leave us a like. That helps us out on the YouTube algorithm, and leave us a comment as well. If there's other topics you want to see us tackle, leave a comment and let us know. We are continually adding to our episode lists of ideas and kind of things that we want to talk about here. So go ahead, leave us a comment, shoot us an email. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts or any of the podcast apps, go ahead, leave us a review, leave us a 5-star review. We will read it on the show. But the more likes, more interaction we get, the more people we can reach. So we greatly appreciate that. And if you're watching us on YouTube, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you can see all of our new content when it appears. All right, so let's jump into it. Back in episode 20 of the podcast, we dove into basically why we loved and enjoy card games. What we're going to talk about on this episode is kind of like why we love card games 2.0, kind of just because A lot of the topics that we brought up then, we're kind of doing a deeper dive into it now. We're going to define a lot of things here. But if you haven't yet, go check that out. Episode 20. But card games is like, it's why... I think it's why we both really got into the genre in this space.
Yeah.
So, and if you listen to that episode, you'll hear Jim's story of how he got into card games. And Jim, what was the first card game that you played? Hardcore, basically.
It was pretty much Yu-Gi-Oh! What got me into it.
Yeah, and for me, it was Magic the Gathering. Mm-hmm. We talked about that on that episode, so if you want to hear that, go check that out. But for Jim, for you went basically like from Yu-Gi-Oh! To Magic, right?
Yeah, there was a few stops in between playing other card games, but pretty much.
Yeah, and for me, it was basically just all Magic. Not all Magic, but that was why, like, Magic was why I got into this space. Yeah. And so when we talk, I feel like when anybody talks about card games, like for people who've been around for a while, and honestly, even for people who haven't, when they think of card games, they probably think of the big three. The big three being Magic the Gathering, Yu-Gi-Oh, and Pokemon. Excuse me. I like those are the big three that really anybody talks about, really, right? When they talk about card games. I mean, there's a ton of other ones.
It's normally, depending on like the country, it goes back and forth between Magic the Gathering and Yu-Gi-Oh. Yep. But I also know that in China, there's actually not a whole lot of Magic players.
Oh, okay.
So I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, they came out with like a dual deck setup for it was a green Planeswalker along with a blue one, like Yu Lang or something along those lines.
Wu Yangling.
Yeah, that's it. So they came out with
Planeswalker.
that. They came out with that specifically to target more people in China.
Oh.
So in China, I think it actually might be more Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon for being their top two.
Yeah, which makes sense. And we're going to get into the history here in a minute, and you'll probably understand why. So Magic the Gathering was created by Richard Garfield and is now owned by Wizards of the Coast, which is a subsidiary of Hasbro, in 1993. If you go back into our podcast, episode 8, we talked all about Magic the Gathering, so go check that out. Magic the Gathering was the first trading card game, the first one. And so rightly so, it's always, especially here in the US, it is real. It's like the pinnacle of card games. And like when I say pinnacle of card games, like I don't mean like it's the best card game ever. Like, I mean that is strictly, that's always a subjective argument, right? But it's something to be said that for it being the first one and it's still around and one of the biggest, at least in the United States.
Yeah.
There's definitely something to be said about that. So got a couple stats here. As of December 2018, there was approximately 35 million players of Magic. Okay. It's estimated that over 20 billion Magic cards were produced between the years of 2008 and 2016. These are all taken from Wikipedia, so you can go check out the Wikipedia entry there. And then also there's this New Yorker article called 25-Year Journey of Magic the Gathering. Definitely go check that out. And I think in that episode, episode 8, where we talked about Magic, I think we talked about a couple other articles. So if you check out the show notes, you can go check out those links as well. But that New Yorker article was interesting because there is he's a football player, Cassius Marsh. Yes. All right. But there's the art, we're talking about a New Yorker article, right? And if you're familiar with the New Yorker at all, you'll know that the New Yorker is pretty famous for like the political cartoons that are in there. They brought it into that article as well. So the artwork in that article is really cool. But there's a picture of Cassius Marsh that he uses. I think it's his Twitter handle, but he had it on social media for a while at least. But that was where it came from, was that New Yorker article. So when I was reading the article, I'm like, oh, that is so cool. I did not know that. So that was kind of cool. Okay, so the next one of the big three, we've got Yu-Gi-Oh. Yu-Gi-Oh! Was created in 1999, created by manga artist Kazuki Takahashi and Konami. Oh, this is a run-on sentence. Oh, no, I'm sorry. It was named the top-selling card game in the world by Guinness World Records on July 7th, 2009, having sold over 22 billion cards worldwide. The January 2021 estimate is about 35 billion cards worldwide and grossed over $9.64 billion. And again, this is all taken from Wikipedia. That's crazy.
That's pretty good.
Like that's absolutely insane to me. Okay. And I don't want to spend like a lot of time on this. I just kind of want to like run through these here. And then Pokemon trading card game.
Oh, all right. Before we get into Pokemon.
For sure.
For Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know if you know this, but
Probably
there is
not.
a season 0 for Yu-Gi-Oh! Right?
Okay.
Has nothing to do with the card game, right? It's
what is it?
So it's the manga of when Yugi pretty much first gets the puzzle, right?
Okay.
And a Tam takes over. Spoilers, his name's a Tam rather than Yami. And so this dark evil pharaoh essentially takes over his body, and he starts to play games with bullies or just bad people in the world.
Okay.
Or in Japan.
Okay.
And he puts them into these shadow games, and it'll be like he puts a stack of money on the back of their hand, right?
Okay.
And you have a knife. So you have to stab through to see how much money you can get, right?
Okay.
And so, long story short, the bully is able to stab through all the money and get it.
Okay.
And then he's like, wait, why would I just take this when I can also take yours and kill you? So then he pulls the knife out on Yugi, right? And then he sends him to the shadow realm, which is a thing. He straight up kills this dude.
Holy cow!
It's dark.
Oh, who knew Yu-Gi-Oh was that dark? I thought it was like a kid's show.
Yeah, season 0 was dark.
Holy cow! And like that's owned by Konami?
At that time, I don't know exactly who owned it.
Man.
But yeah.
Dude, that's crazy. Wow.
Yeah.
Well,
I'll show you the mangas for it.
Okay.
I think it's at the library. I gotta find out.
So I want to see that. Dude, that's awesome. So that is Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0.
Yeah, season 0.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That's crazy. Okay, so Pokemon. Let's talk about a not dark thing. But I mean, there's definitely like fan content of Pokemon that's really dark. But anyway.
Well, some Pokemon have dark lore to them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Dude, I love Pokemon. Pokemon has a history. So Pokemon, the trading card game, was first published in October of 1996 by Media Factory in Japan. Now, it was first published in the U.S. initially by Wizards of the Coast. Okay, and I believe they still publish the Pokemon trading the actual cards.
I forget.
But right now it's all the Pokemon Company.
Yeah.
I think.
Okay.
So as of March 2021, the game has sold over 34.1 billion cards worldwide.
Ooh.
So needless to say, it's relatively popular. Now,
Pokemon's always
so
gonna be big,
real
I feel
quick,
like.
actually, I was reading this, Yu-Gi-Oh! There was a lawsuit from Konami against the Upper Deck Company for selling counterfeit Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards. Because I believe initially Upper Deck had the the sole production rights in the United States, and then for some reason they were selling counterfeit Yu-Gi-Oh! Cards.
Okay.
This was all I found all of this in Wikipedia. So take that for what it is. Like I just take that for what it is. It is Wikipedia.
There was also something set up like a lawsuit between Yu-Gi-Oh! And Magic the Gathering because they're now spell cards, which was their green cards, used to be called magic cards.
Ah, yes.
So I thought that's the one you're going to bring up.
Yes, I did. Yeah, I saw that. Yeah. Okay, so those are the big three: Magic, Konami, Pokemon. As you can see, they've been around for a while, all pre-2000s, and in the case of Magic, early 90s.
Yeah.
I think that is so cool. Like I really do. I think a game that has started in 1993 is still really popular.
Yeah.
I know the popularity, rises and falls, but the fact that these games are still so popular, and even their digital client, they have digital games, the digital clients, and those are still extremely popular as well too. I mean, Magic has both Magic Arena and MTGO. Yu-Gi-Oh has so many different, with the newest being what is it?
Master Duel.
Master Duel. That's
but
what
they
it is.
also had a lot of Game Boy games as well. So whether it was the original Game Boy, DS,
Right, and same with Pokemon.
Yeah.
Pokemon, again, when I'm speaking Pokemon, I'm strictly talking the trading card game.
Yeah.
Has a lot of mobile games through their history, and now the Pokemon trading card game is amazing to play on digital devices.
Yeah.
It is fantastic.
I believe the TCG online is on phone, correct?
So it's not on my phone.
Tablet?
It's on tablet.
Oh, okay.
So I couldn't get it on my phone, but I do have it on my tablet, I believe. So there's some games like Pokemon where you can only play it on like your tablet. Again, it's all dependent upon whoever's developing that specific version and what devices they bring it to.
Yeah.
So, but again, dude, I just think it's awesome the fact that 2022 there's so many different ways to play these games that initially, we just were sitting at with a table and that was it. Like, it's so cool.
Technology is a hell of a drug.
It is, and it's so cool. All right. So when card games first started becoming popular, okay, the only real model, like how they were made for them, was as a trading or collectible game, like these big three that we talked about. This really was seen, I think, as the best model for the publishers, like as it made them the most money, right? Because if you think about, and again, back in the early 90s and even the mid 90s, like these games, we talk now, like 2022, there's so many different card games, right?
Yeah.
So many different, and even CCGs, collectible card games, and TCGs, trading card games, which is these big three, right? Like now you have those. You also, you've got Flesh and Blood is like a new quote unquote up and comer.
Number 4.
It is a fantastic game. You have Cardfight Vanguard. You have Forcible. There's so many. There's a lot.
Forcible is not one anymore.
Well, you can still play it. Like it was a thing. There's a I don't know if it's still alive, but it's a Final Fantasy trading card game as well.
I think they're still making stuff for it, but with Force of Will, it's actually still pretty big in Japan.
Okay. And that's the other thing, too, is like the market. Like, which market are we talking about?
Yeah.
Because you've got Japan and the United States, two completely different markets of even just card games and what's popular where.
There is also another game that Wizards of the Coast had more recently called Duel Masters or Kaijudo. And it was first called Duel Masters, and then they rebranded to Kaijudo, and it's no longer being made in the U.S. or in any, English-speaking countries, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
It's only being made in Japan.
Oh, okay.
And I believe it's still under the name Duel Masters.
Oh, okay.
And it's not even Kaijudo there.
Oh, okay.
So,
okay. Okay. So, like I said, it really was seen as the best model for the publisher as it made them the most money because it kept the customer coming back for more, right? Because that model it's the booster pack model, right? You have boxes, you've got booster boxes, and within each booster box is a pack. You don't know what you're going to get in the pack, and it's still a thing like for Magic. In each pack of Magic, you have one mythic or rare, X amount of uncommons, and then X amount of commons, and a land/token.
Yeah.
Or I think you definitely get a land and then a token. I think that's how it goes.
Or an advertising card, I think.
Yeah,
right?
and they change that from set to set. And you know what the pack distribution is going to be ahead of time before you buy a pack. You know the rarity of the card that you're going to get. So it's essentially gambling. It's really what it is. Because you don't know what you're going to get.
It's a loot box.
I was just going to say that. Like in video game terms now, it's loot boxes.
Yeah.
And loot boxes, in talking about video games, are not making the player base very happy. So excuse me.
There's actually some countries that straight out ban the loot box.
Yeah, which I get it. I mean, I don't like it when stuff's banned, but again, I can understand the customer frustration because you're spending a lot of money and you're still not getting what you're seeking out to get, right? So at the time, right, doing this model, the TCG and CCG model, right, is what we're calling it. Like, it meant that only big name publishers really could afford to design, print, and sell these types of products. Like, it really hindered the ability for anybody else to make these types of games. Now, whether that, like, trying to keep anyone else was a part of what they were trying to do, I don't know. Like, was that a thing? Maybe, but I don't know. I have no data to back that up. It very well could be. I mean, what do you think? Do you think that was an actual thing? Or do you think, like, I think because this was a relatively new type of product / game, that they were all figuring it out as they went. And I don't think there really was the malicious intent to try and keep anybody else out. I mean, like, it could be, but I don't know.
I mean, I don't know. Especially for Magic, like, they were kind of just going with it.
Right.
And then you could also say because Pokemon came out in 96 pretty much, and then Yu-Gi-Oh! 99.
Right. And again, those were big companies too.
Yeah.
Right. So they were probably like, looking at the resources they had. Hey, this is something we can get into and make money. We have an IP that we can use. Now, so Yu-Gi-Oh! Do you know, like, was the manga Yu-Gi-Oh! Created at the same time? I actually did not look into this. Like, was the Yu-Gi-Oh! Manga around before the actual card game?
I do not remember which one, like, came first.
Okay.
I don't
know. Because, like, if you think, like, nowadays, there's card games being made left and right that are based off of existing IPs, intellectual properties.
Yeah.
And that's easier to do than coming up with a brand new IP and then be like, hey, we are building a card game out based off of, I don't know, Root, for example. I'm looking at Root right over there, right? Like
Disney
a trading
princesses.
Card game. Yeah, right, exactly. Like, that is an infinitely easier thing to do than coming up with brand new characters.
I'd only play Frozen. That's and Mulan. And Mulan, yeah.
Mulan, you like Mulan too?
Yeah, I like Mulan.
Mulan was a good movie. My favorite was Eddie Murphy in that movie.
Oh yeah.
I'm
a dragon. I don't do that tongue thing.
Dude, I gotta watch that movie again. It's been a while since I've seen that. The Mulan 2 is actually not terrible either. It's actually kind of funny.
I don't think
Have
I've
you seen it?
No.
I
did recently see the live action one, which I thought was okay.
I haven't seen it yet. Jimmy Wong is in that movie. I've heard.
I pointed that out to my girlfriend.
Does he have a big part in it?
His part was actually bigger than I thought, but it's not like a very big part.
Yeah.
So
I haven't seen it. I have not seen that movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I heard mixed reviews, but I want to see just because Jimmy Wong's in it.
If you guys don't know, Jimmy Wong is a part of a very big Magic the Gathering podcast / YouTube, whatever you want to call it. It's Game Night or Command Zone.
Command Zone is the name of the channel.
Yeah, just one of their big things is Game Nights.
Game Nights, yep. That was like the show that got me into Commander. And they've grown massively. One of my goals is to get Jimmy and Josh as guests on the podcast. Woo. That is like, that's up there.
And then we play then we play Commander.
Oh yeah.
2-headed giant. I got Jimmy on my team.
Hey, if I've got Josh, I am.
We're just gonna play mono red.
Yeah, you would. Oh, that's funny. But like that's a goal. That is a goal. That'd be awesome. That would be that'd be so cool. I'm like fanboying over here a little bit. It's cool. I really enjoy those guys so much. I respect the two of them so much. We'll just leave it there, else we're gonna get off track.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't really think going back to the TCG and CCG model, I don't really think that there was any malicious intent by these publishers to keep other people out. It was just it was new. It was new. And Richard Garfield is a genius. I mean, he is. Excuse me, but there's really nothing else to say. I landed right to go away. All right.
Do you even know what you're doing, Dan?
No, I don't think so. All right. So the other thing too, I mean, this was well before the Kickstarter revolution. Yep. So the only way you could make these games was you had to have a big company.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of articles out there that talk about that. Nobody, not anybody could make a game if they wanted to, nowadays, right? So many small market designers and publishers just weren't around, but they just did not have the capability to do that because they didn't have access to the capital that these large giant corporations did. And that was just that was the reality of the situation back then, period. So, yeah, I mean, it's when you look at the history, it's really interesting just to see where, if you look at where we're at now, looking back to where we came from, really all card games now really are standing on the shoulders of Magic, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh! And honestly, Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon are standing on Magic's shoulders. I think. But they've all done things a little bit differently, so really they are
I was going to say,
groundwork.
especially how the card games are played. They're... All three of them are drastically different.
Yes, for sure.
So,
yep. All right. So the next thing, let's actually define our terms. Okay.
Yes.
So, what different? We're going to talk about what different types of card games are there. So, card games. If you ever see CG, that's usually reference to card game, right? So, what types of CGs are there, and what are some of the games? Okay. So the big three, all right. So Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh, Pokemon. Those are trading and or collectible card games. So TCGs or CCGs, that is what the big three are. Now also look at Flesh and Blood is one of the big ones now. Yep. Fab, that is a type of trading or collectible card game. Those terms, again, really they are used interchangeably, especially now. The other thing that I didn't put in here, but I do want to mention, is nowadays, the black market, I say the black market, right? But the secondary market for TCGs and CCGs, because really the only way you could get a card, again, back in the day, was I gotta buy more packs, buy more packs, or you found somebody who had it and you had to trade it to them, right? I have something you want, you have something I want, so let's make a deal. But now you have websites, businesses built all completely around the use of the secondary markets. That speaks to how popular these games are. When you have businesses like TCGplayer.com, Card Kingdom, that's what they're built on.
It's also my favorite part of these card games.
Buying cards?
Or just knowing the prices of these cards.
Oh, yeah, the markets. Yeah.
Yeah, I love the market.
The market, again, there's so many things that go into card games. It's crazy. All right. So we talk about TCGs, CCGs. All right. Next, we talk about deck building games. A little bit different, but especially in this type of conversation. But actually, we have a whole episode dedicated to all about deck building games. That is episode number 12. So a deck building game, okay, it's a card game or board game where construction of a deck is a main element of gameplay. Deck building games are similar to collectible card games in that each player has their own deck. However, unlike CCGs, the cards are not sold in randomized packs, and the majority of the deck is built during the game instead of before the game. So again, if you're not familiar, like TCGs and CCGs, typically you have a very, very large card pool, like of the cards that are available for you to use, and you build a deck of, let's say, 40 or 50 cards, whatever it is. You build that beforehand, you bring it to the tournament or whatever, and you play. Deck building games are very cool, and again, we've played a lot of them on the channel. Deck building games are some of my favorite card games, but you have your starting cards, and then you build the deck during the game. There's a lot of different ones, but some of the big ones, you have DC deck building game, which was my first one. You have Legendary, different types of Legendary. You've got James Bond Legendary now, which is really cool.
Alien, Predator,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. You have Big Trouble in Little China. That's and there's a Firefly one too, that's really hard to get. That's really hard to get your hands on.
I'm not surprised.
Yeah. And then you've got Dominion and then Ascension. Dominion's been around for forever. Ascension is fantastic too.
I believe Dominion was the first deck builder.
Yeah, Dominion, and if you really were to look up deck building games, what you'd really find is Dominion was like the first deck builder. So a lot of those deck building games, they look to Dominion and what Dominion did. And the fact that they're still making, I think they're still making expansions for Dominion.
Yeah.
There's like 20 or so odd boxes now. It's fun. It really is fun. Anybody who enjoys card games, I always recommend getting into deck builders. It's super easy. Just buy your box and then go. It's very cool. Okay, so we talk about deck builders, and then we talk about expandable / living card games. Okay, so personally, like, I think all of the card games that we're talking about, they really are expandable in nature, right? Meaning the card pool is continually expanded by the addition of more and more cards. But we do want to keep that term expandable card game like really reserved. Why is the term living card game is actually a trademarked term by Fantasy Flight Games. So they've got, and they actually have an article written all about it. And I'm going to read like the first two paragraphs here. So a living card game, LCG, it offers an innovative fixed distribution method that breaks away from the traditional CCG or collectible card game model. While LCGs still offer the same dynamic, expanding, and constantly evolving gameplay that makes CCGs so much fun, they do away with the deterrent of the blind buy purchase model that has burned out so many players, like we've talked about. The end result is an innovative mix that gives you the best of both worlds. Again, the best of both worlds, like, that's always subjective, obviously, but as marketing material, what do you expect, right? So again, LCG is trademarked, right? But when we say, or honestly, really, when anybody says an expandable card game or a living card game, right? What they really mean is you buy a box, you buy your product, and then you have everything you need. That's really what is meant by LCG or a living card game or an expandable card game. And like the reason that Fantasy Flight went to the term living card game is they're like, yeah, we're always bringing out new product, and the story is ever evolving, and it's a living thing constantly. Well, like, I get it. Like, and it makes business sense. Like, it does make sense to like trademark the term. It makes sense. So like the initial draw of these games, these expandable and living card games, is that they're more affordable and you know exactly what you're going to get. Again, I'm going to say more affordable. But again, like, there really is a difference between I'm going to buy a box, I know exactly what's in it, and if Jim and I both buy a box, we're getting the exact same thing.
Yep.
Versus he buys 5 booster packs, I buy 5 booster packs.
I'm not going to do that. I'm going to buy singles.
Yeah. Don't buy packs. Buy
I'd rather spend that $25 on singles.
Right, exactly. Right, but you don't know what you're going to get. Yep. Like, it is fun. It is fun. I've popped my share of booster packs and boxes, plenty. It is fun, but it doesn't make sense. Again, let me preface that. Depending on what your goal is, it normally does not make financial sense for you to bust open packs.
Yeah.
But like if your goal is I'm opening them to resell them, a completely different story, right? And it is fun. I'm not gonna lie, it's fun opening the packs. But if you are purchasing the packs because you're looking for a certain card, it's better to go into the secondary market to buy singles.
Yep.
It is. That is why businesses like Card Kingdom and TCGplayer.com, that is why they exist. Even Channel Fireball and Star City Games, like that's a big part of their business too. That's why they exist. That's part of why they exist, because it makes sense. It's like it is the best thing to do, I think. If you're
I think you could also get this stuff on Amazon and eBay as well.
You can now. Well, I mean, eBay is another
eBay's
secondary.
had it for a while.
Yeah, eBay's had it for a while too. Yeah,
which I think if we had an affiliate link, this would be great.
Yeah, it would. But Amazon just started selling. And actually, this was a big thing when this happened. Like, it was a big thing in the Magic community. People were not happy because they were starting to cut out more LGSs, local game stores, because Amazon is just getting big. And like personally, like I know the value that LGS, and like that's one of our goals. Like we want to have an LGS. Yep. I know the value that an LGS brings, and it's very hard for small businesses to compete with people like Amazon. So like we have affiliate codes for Amazon. And I probably don't say this enough, but if you can, support your LGS first. Like support your LGS first if you can. Like if it's a great store and it's a great community, support them first before you support us by using our affiliate codes for like Amazon and stuff. Because honestly, I feel like I can't in good conscience not say that, because we know the importance of local communities.
That's for sure.
It's so vital to the health of these games that we love that you have to definitely, if you can, support your LGS by buying from them, right? And then if you don't have one, I'll definitely we'd love it for you to support us by using our affiliate codes, but definitely support your LGS because it's very important.
Do you know about the thing some terrible people are doing with the Amazon Magic boxes?
No.
With resealing and then returning them?
No.
And these people who are working at Amazon don't know like that they're doing this, or even possibly what to be looking for.
Yeah, no.
There's been a lot of people that have gotten now boxes from Amazon, opening it up, and they're like, these have been resealed.
Jeez.
Yeah.
I did not know about that. It doesn't surprise me. It really does not surprise me.
When I learned about that, I'm like,
when did you hear about that?
I want to say a few months ago now.
Okay, like none of that.
But I don't know how long they've been doing it. If I heard about this a few months ago.
Yeah, no, that's true. Okay, so there's two articles. One is entitled "What the Heck is a Living Card Game," and then the other one is "What the Heck is a Living Card Game 4 Years Later." So the guy who wrote it, the initial article, Brian K. is all it says. Brian K. He actually went on to work for Fantasy Flight Games.
Oh, wow.
So I think he knew a little bit of what he was talking about, of what a living card game was. So I'm going to link those. You can go check those out. But it gives you kind of it's a very brief and very quick rundown of what living card games are, kind of what we're talking about. I think it's funny that the original author went on to work for Fantasy Flight. But I do want to talk about the one that was 4 years later, because they do bring up they brought some interesting stuff. So it's like 4 years later, and they were like, basically nothing has changed. But on a whole other level, everything has changed type thing. Like living card games I don't really know what to call it. Like, do you call it a format? Like, it basically kind of is a format.
Yeah.
Or like genre.
Yeah, it's a genre.
It's like a subgenre of card games, right? So with that, there are a couple of card games I do want to touch on. The first being Marvel Champions.
Yes.
So we've played Marvel. We've played Marvel Champions. We're getting into that more. But Marvel Champions was announced in August of 2019. So a few notes. There's 3 campaign expansions or big box expansions. There's another one recently announced, Sinister Motives. That's a Spider-Man themed one. There's 18 hero expansions out with 5 heroes in the core box and 2 heroes per big box. So that would make for a total of 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28 total heroes, playable heroes that you can play. There's 4 separate scenario packs that have been released as well. And then, so Marvel Champions is a single player and or a co-op experience. So you can play it solo, or you and a friend or multiple friends can play through it together. So, okay, I know I said expandable living card games are one of the draws. They're more affordable, but when you go through, there's 50 boxes of stuff out there that you can buy. You're like, bro, I'm not about to drop $500 so I can have everything. But
they're like affordable.
Yeah,
but then
right?
I'm like, oh, you want to play modern and drop like $1,000 on one deck.
One deck of cards in modern for Magic, and $1,000 is like the low end.
No, it's not.
Okay,
it's not.
It's not. You're right. You're right. I've
like Burn and.
But I'm like thinking about like Commander and like blinged out Commander decks. Yeah.
If we're talking about competitive Commander, you're looking at least like $3,000.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But no, not a lot of people. I shouldn't say that. Not a lot of people in my circles. I will add that qualifier in there. Not a lot of people in my circles play competitive Commander.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's not wrong. Like $3,000, yeah, that's a thing.
Say, what is it? Time Twister. That's like $2,300 for a bad copy.
Well, I mean, plus all the fetch lands.
Yeah, I was just
fetch lands.
Time Twister.
Oh yeah, I know. Right? Is it really?
I think it's around that price point. Yeah.
Goodness. Yeah, like the extra turns decks. Yeah, those ones. Yeah, those ones are crazy. Okay, and then we've got Arkham Horror, the card game. It's another one that was announced in August of 2016. There are 7 different cycles for that game. So each cycle had its initial deluxe expansion with 6 additional story packs. So the initial expansion had your initial story elements plus your your initial investigators that were from that set. Okay. And then the story expansions or the additional story cycles finished out that story. So now they have a return to boxes. So not redoing the story, but here you can replay through the story again, but here's some of these other cards that you can throw into it. And now what they're actually doing is
that like a new game plus?
Kind of, yes, kind of. And now what they're also doing is they're combining all of the player/investigator cards in their own separate box and having all the story elements in their own separate box. So as opposed to doing, Edge of the Earth is the most recent expansion for that game. So as opposed to doing the release that they normally were doing with the deluxe expansions and then the story packs going on, they're combining everything and just doing 2 separate boxes for all the player cards in one and the story elements in the other. So as opposed to having to worry about 7 different products, you're basically going to have to worry about 2.
Right.
Well, the return to is still separate because that's still coming after it. So those 2, Marvel Champions and Arkham Horror, there's plenty of other living card games, but those are probably 2 of the most popular at the moment of the recording. And then Ashes Reborn is an expandable card game, not a living card game, but it's still that similar type of model. But this is not like a story like it's not based on like it's a story driven experience. It's more competitive. It's 1v1 competitive, much more akin to Magic the Gathering. Now, one of the interesting things about Ashes is instead of having your resources as cards in your deck, a la Magic, all the lands from Magic, your resources are dice, which is cool. It's an interesting concept. So roll your dice. That's the resource that you have to play with for that phase/turn.
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say this game has been one of my favorites for a bit now, but I'm terrible at it. I just really like to play it.
So originally Ashes came out actually a while ago, but it was brought back by the guys from Team Covenant helped to bring it back essentially. And so right now, like if you want to basically get into that game, you sign up for a list and then you're basically sent the product, not sent it, but like you're buying it, right?
Yeah.
But it basically gives them a way to gauge the popularity of the game, right? So that's Ashes is another one. It's not one that I haven't played it yet. I mean, I have it. And we want to get into it. There's so many card games that like we really want to.
There's so many games.
There is, but like for us, we're like the card games. Okay, so now we want to touch on like the reasons we think you should play these expandable and living card games. I mean, number one, they're awesome. I mean, they really are. They're some of the most fun that I've had playing a tabletop game ever. The gameplay variety is so cool because again, like for me, coming from Magic, right? As a big player of Magic, these types of games give me a really big variety, like in terms of not only gameplay, but also like the story elements. And I found that really in Marvel, Arkham Horror, and Lord of the Rings. Like, it's to me like it's so cool the way that I'm able to play through these stories and these narrative elements that I'm actually playing through that and not just I am slapping these cards down and like I'm playing a 1v1 game in Magic. Now, like the lore in Magic is cool, but like you're not playing and again, like I'm talking about this in terms of Magic because it's what I'm most familiar with. Like, the lore in Magic is very cool, but I'm not getting into... Like, if I want to get into the lore, I have to, like, seek it out and research it.
You have to actively go find it. It's not something that's just directly inside these cards.
Like, you have to open a book. And I don't say that in a bad way at all. But
figuratively. You literally have to open a book.
Yes, you do. But with Arkham Horror, Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings, the book is the game.
Yeah.
Like as we're and that's one of my favorite parts when I first got into Arkham Horror. I've got these cards and like Jim will tell you, and Michael has been on the show, played them with him, he'll tell you too. Like I'm really getting into the story as I'm reading the cards. I love doing that. I don't want anyone else reading those cards. But the first time I played, I think it was Arkham Horror. I played it with Michael. Like as I'm reading it, he goes, "Have you ever played a D&D?" It's like, because I think you'd really like it. Lo and behold, I did. But like again, if you enjoy D&D, isn't the experience at least somewhat relatively similar?
Yeah.
From a DM standpoint.
Yeah, because like, you have the adventure cards in Lord of the Rings, right? Yeah. It's telling you the story of what it is that you're even finding. And then it's like, all right, now go through the monster deck, go pull X spider or whatever it is, Right. And so then it's you're just going through the forest or going through the mountain ranges and whatever it is, and it's taking you there emotionally as well, rather than just being like, oh, I play this card 2 damage, blah blah blah.
When I first started playing Arkham Horror, the card game, like that was I'm playing through the story and I'm really getting into the story, right? And as I'm playing it, like the monster cards or whatever like came out and they're like legit chasing you around the makeshift board that you make with more cards.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, I have literally one last shot to beat this guy. And I'm like, because one of the aspects of Arkham Horror is like it's like a randomized bag almost of these tokens that you pull. So I'm reaching in, I'm like, did I die or did I actually get it? And like I was on my seat. It was so much fun.
Now, I also remember in Arkham Horror and Lord of the Rings there being a lot more story to it, but I don't remember it so much in Marvel Champions.
So, okay. It's there, but I think
it's just not as prevalent.
It does not take as big a front seat.
Okay.
Now, especially with the initial the core box, it's not as prevalent, especially with Rhino. Like Rhino, his scenario is one card. There's more villains and bosses that what they're trying to do is over the course of 4 or 5 cards, for instance. So there's more story elements there.
Okay.
So like Rhino there's not a ton of story there.
Okay.
But it is there.
That is the only one we've played. So.
You mean on the channel?
Well, for me in general, because
you've played Arkham. You've played Arkham.
No. I'm my bad. I was talking about Rhino scenario.
Oh, okay,
in Marvel
okay,
Champion.
yeah, sure, understood. I gotcha. So you'll see the more we play it how each villain is different, and then with the later boxes, like they introduce campaigns where you're taking your hero and then playing through multiple different stories.
Okay.
Which we've won larger narrative experience together. So I'm interested in like Mad Titan Shadow, I think was the expansion that really first introduced that to the game.
Okay.
So it's there. And with Marvel Champions being relatively newer, I'm interested to see how it evolves as a game, the more content that comes out for it.
Okay.
So I'm really interested, like with the new Sinister Motive set. I'm interested to see what they do with that one for sure. So the next thing, we talk about gameplay variety, but just also the versatility and the replayability. So like Marvel Champions, like you take Rhino, for instance. You have so many different heroes. Like we said, there's 20 some odd heroes right now. You could play that same scenario with not only each different hero, but each hero built around a different aspect. Yes. Like deck building is huge. We haven't, we'll talk about that here in a second. But like the replay, and I've said this even about deck building games. It's a similar thing. But the replayability level is so high on all these games. Even the story elements, like what's gonna happen. Like building a deck to go through that. Like you've got different decks, you're still experiencing it for the first time with this deck. So like the replayability is very cool. Also the ability to play these games solo. Yeah. We talked last week all about solo gaming. But when I was looking into, because before I started coming to Grapple, I didn't have people to play these games with. I'm like, what games are out there that I can actually play to get into, tabletop? And then I found Fantasy Flight, and then these card games. I'm like, how in the world can you play a card game by yourself? Because again, when I thought card game at the time, I'm thinking Magic, Pokemon, right, and Yu-Gi-Oh, like that. I knew it was 1v1, but you can experience these stories solo, and true solo at that. Meaning you don't have two different, you're not
playing two different decks.
You're not playing two different decks or two different characters, for instance. Yeah. So the next thing I've got the amount of different types of experiences and stories that are out there in this genre. It's fantastic, and more coming. So we've talked about the ones that Marvel Champions, Lord of the Rings, Arkham Horror. You also have Earthborn Rangers, which we're looking forward to. We talked about that before. Vampire the Masquerade Rivals is another expandable card game from Renegade Game Studios. But like, if you enjoy like the fantasy elements, just the different types of story, like if you're very imaginative, which if you're in this type of this space, this hobby space, you probably are. Like there's so many different stories that really are out there, and most of them are really good stories too. Like if you don't, it's a lot of fun. Okay, and let's see if I don't think I brought this article up, but there is, and we've talked about this site before as well, Dicebreaker. But there's an article from Dicebreaker. They said best card games that are collectible and expandable card games that are not Magic the Gathering. Some we've talked about. So they say Keyforge. Keyforge is very interesting. It's a unique deck game. It really doesn't fall in. It falls outside of what we're talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what I'd classify that as.
Like they classify it as a unique deck game.
That's what it's called, unique deck game?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's not wrong.
Yeah, because each deck is not like any other
I thought
decks.
you were just saying like generic words for it.
Well, that's all I could think of.
It's just a unique thing.
Well, because it is. Because each deck is the only deck there is for the game. You don't deck build. You don't have a card pool. You buy a deck, and that is your deck for the game.
Yeah, you buy one pack.
Yes.
And it's the entire deck of like 30 cards or something.
So it's on hiatus now because there's a problem with the algorithm. It's weird, but they're not producing the game right now.
That happened
it's not
in
dead.
August or September.
Yeah,
or
it happened late last year.
Yeah.
So Keyforge is a thing, and we haven't played it yet. I want to. I've actually got a starter. I've got a starter deck.
I've only played it one time.
You've played it?
I got destroyed to a board wipe.
You would. He's an aggro players typically get destroyed to board wipes anyway. So Ashes, they talk about Rise of the Phoenix Born, Yu-Gi-Oh, Speed Duel. Okay, you need to tell me. So with Yu-Gi-Oh, what is the difference between Speed Duel and these other formats?
Speed Duel is something they made to bridge the gap of people from normal, or taking people from Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links, which is on PC and mobile, to try and get them into the actual card game.
Okay.
So in normal Yu-Gi-Oh, you can have 5 Monster Zone and then 5 back row or Spell and Trap cards.
Okay.
In Duel Links and Speed Duel, you can only have 3 in the front and 3 in the back.
Oh,
and I think it's 4,000 life points, so it also cuts it in half as well for both of these games. So it just goes a lot faster.
It's a faster format. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So they also have Sorcerer, which I hadn't heard of. I don't know what Sorcerer is. They have Legends of the Five Rings, the card game, which is a living card game, but it is dead now. It is not being manufactured by FFG anymore. Final Fantasy trading card game. So like I said, I knew there was one out there. Doomtown Reloaded. Haven't heard of that. Pokemon, the trading card game. Star Realms / Hero Realms.
I like how they put the other big 2 on there, except
well,
but we're not going to say Magic.
Yeah, but they said big. They said card games that aren't Magic. So again, this is definitely from the U.S.
Yeah.
Because again, we talked about before the different markets, right? They've got Star Realms and Hero Realms, which those are deck builders.
Those are great.
I do want to play those on the channel as well. Game of Thrones, the card game. That's a competitive living card game. It's not being made anymore. But that was also Fantasy Flight games.
A lot of competitive living card games aren't being made anymore.
And the next one, Android Netrunner, is another one. That's another one. And I've heard that was awesome. But that's the thing. Like, I'm interested to see where this genre goes in the future. Because, like, Marvel Champions is doing fantastic. I feel like, again, as someone who's a relative newcomer to the tabletop scene, I do feel like Fantasy Flight is making good card games. Yeah. So, like, again, Arkham, Marvel, and Lord of the Rings, they've knocked it out of the park. Okay, the last thing I want to touch on is deck building. Deck building is a lot of fun. Initially, for me, it was very intimidating. And for a lot of people, deck building can be very intimidating. but it is so much fun, and it is so rewarding. I do feel like almost that we'll have to talk about deck building on its own episode, because there's so many things you can talk about when you talk about deck building. Like you can be building a deck to solve a problem. You can be building a deck to counter the metagame. Like, what kind of deck are you trying to build? Like, you have to answer that question first. I mean, Jim, like, that's your thing, right? I
love deck building. The theory crafting that comes into all of this stuff. Although, so it's been a long time since I've been... I don't even know what to say.
It's been a long time since you've sat down and actually brewed like a real deck.
No. I'm more so thinking of like intimidated by deck building. But one game recently,
okay,
Flesh and Blood. When I first got into that game, there's so you can have one card, but it's in 3 different colors essentially, and they all have different damage and resource, not cost, but resource generation. Right? So you can, it's red, yellow, and blue. Red is the most aggro, blue is the most resource generation. And so you take the cards from your hand, put them into the discard, and depending on what the pitch cost is, so it can give you between 1 and 3, right? And now you're thinking like, all right, well, I want to build an aggro deck, so you would think I'm just going all red. Well, except now you need to pay attention to how much actual mana those red cards cost, and now you have to start throwing in that also many blue cards, and then it's like, all right, well, now there are some really good class-specific yellow cards that just work extremely well. So now what do I take out from this for flat damage to now start comboing? And it's just like, so you can have 9 of the exact same card in your deck, 3 of them in every single color.
Deck building...
Flesh and Blood is ridiculous.
It is. And like, honestly, the biggest thing with deck building is you really have to have a super solid understanding of the game that you're trying to build a deck around, like a deck for. Like that is a hard step one. You've got to know that before anything. Like your next thing is, okay, what am I trying to do? Am I trying to solve a problem? What is my goal with this deck that
am I trying to make a funny deck?
Which like I love doing that in Commander. I enjoy doing that in Commander. Or am I trying to build a deck to just hose over one of my other friends who's playing a commander that I absolutely hate and who wins every time because then he has to lose? Is that what you're trying to do?
He's talking about Golos.
I'm not. Is that what he's trying to do? Am I?
He is.
I built that deck solely to beat Golos. That was the reason I built Golos.
It does pretty well.
Oh yeah,
it does pretty well,
and that's one of my favorite decks now. It's a lot of fun. But with deck building, like we can go on and on. And honestly, I kind of want to. I know he wants to.
I'll save it.
Yeah, we really could. So all right, so that's kind of this episode. Like, have you ever played expandable living card games? If you have, like, what are some of the ones that you enjoy? Have you played Marvel Champions? Have you played Arkham? Have you played Lord of the Rings? Let us know down below. Jim, where can people find you on the interwebs?
Yeah, you guys can find me on Twitter, Twitch, Instagram, all of the random stuff. At Jim Morgan HNH.
You can find me on Instagram at daniel.g.campbell and on Twitter at _DGCampbell. And you can find Hobbies and Happiness on just about every social media platform at hobbies.n.happiness as well. Thanks for being here, everybody. Jim, that was a lot of fun.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that. We'll have to talk about deck building soon too. So
I'm ready.
Yeah.
I'm always ready.
So thanks everybody for being here, and we will catch you in the next episode. See you, everybody.
Take care.
You know what to do.